What's going on, everybody? Welcome to week 10 of the NFL football show on True DFS. BobbyFi here with my man, Eric Sheets-Haber. We are going to be talking through this slate. And honestly, guys, we saw a freak show of a slate, crazy, bizarre, everything. The games were everything. Oddly enough, the two teams that are right now the two best teams in football absolutely blew out their opponents and were huge underdogs going into the game. And it's just everything that you didn't expect to happen happened. And we did have one game or one day earlier this season where all the favorites won. I don't think anybody won who was favored, it felt like, on Sunday. I mean, maybe there was a couple, obviously, but for the most part, it was an absolute nightmare shit show. And even still, like, you know, it wasn't like it was the worst thing for me DFS wise. It wasn't like good, but it wasn't terrible. It just was really, really ugly. So we're going to try and put that week behind us. I'm going to chalk it up to more of an aberration. It is the NFL. It's the way things go. And I think we should look at, motivating performances from some teams that should be a little bit embarrassed how they looked. Buffalo being number one, and we'll get into that game in a minute. But Sheets, what are your overall thoughts sort of here on this slate?
Well, like you said, I mean, sometimes you have to have a short memory and sometimes you have to have a long one. There's some teams that, you see what happens. People keep playing them and keep playing them. Next thing you know, it's the end of the season. You're like, what the hell was I doing?
Mm-hmm.
And there are some teams that, you want to keep playing because you think that they're going to right the ship. And the thing about football is interesting. They're only 16 weeks, they're only, whatever it is, 17 games. And by the time you figure it out, the season's over,
Right.
So I'm ready to get back into it this week, and we'll start right off and we'll highlight what games we like and what some of the plays. And again, this is kind of the earliest look. Just for those you just joining us for the first time, Bobby and I like to do this right around Wednesday, and he and Rhodey, who are going to go through it a little more in detail either tomorrow or Friday, I guess. And then on Sunday, usually I'm around along with both of them to do a live stream, but I'm going to be in Virginia on Sunday, so I'm not going to be available to do that. But that's you'll get all the projections. You'll get Bobby and Rhodey's takes throughout the week and weekend, and we'll get right back at it. We'll be right back at it.
Yep, sounds good to me. All right, let's. Why don't you share your screen and we'll go game by game here. That's what we do here. Me and Rhodey will do the picks show, so we'll have that for you tomorrow evening. But this is a man. I think that, like, every time I feel like I started to feel like I had a real handle on the season and starting to make some sense until last week. So starting right off with it, though, I'm going to do exactly what I did last week and just go right back to it. I don't think, with the way football is being played, that in general it's the ideal thing to spend up for a quarterback who can't get you 40. But we have a guy who can get you 40 in this matchup, and that's Josh Allen. So we have to wonder about whether Singletary or Moss are healthy. I don't know I don't care about the running game on that side. I, in fact, would like to find a run back because I just think for me, it's just a simple thing. It's just this is the stack that I play the most without a run back is the Bills one. And it's just I'm going to have some Allen to Dig exposure. I don't know where they're going to end up for me by the end of this whole weekend or by the end of this whole, week. But I do know I want some of that, and I am going to play some. I think Corey Davis being questionable, if Corey Davis plays, I mean, still Jamison, these are tough matchups for these guys. And they're not priced in this really low price tier or anything. I'm looking at FanDuel pricing. I always do that. I got to stop doing that. Because everybody looked way overpriced to me, and now it makes sense to me because it's a different pricing system on FanDuel, obviously. I hate when I pull up the wrong sheet, but I like the Allen to Diggs combination. I think on a PPR site like DraftKings, you could make an argument if there's no Corey Davis again for Jamison Crowder or Elijah Moore. I think Crowder would be my preferred guy because I think he would see the higher share of targets. I don't know how motivated they are with him. I mentioned, that they had the show me week against Cincinnati. I thought they were going to try and trade him, which they didn't do. But he should get some work in the passing game. So he's the most natural run back if you had to bring anybody, unless you want to play Michael Carter against this defense. And I like Michael Carter very much. And I just don't think there's a way I'm going to be able to do it against Buffalo here. What is your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, Buffalo rates, in a vacuum to be actually tied for the top, my top team that I want to target. And that would be Josh Allen with Stephon Diggs. And I actually have, I don't know whether you like Sanders more, but I like Beasley more than Sanders. So I have Allen, Diggs, and Beasley. And as far as a run back goes, I mean, this is not the greatest way to play, but I think Michael Carter is actually a pretty decent value here at 5,600. I think he's kind of, I don't know. I feel as though that's the way I would play it. I don't know if I would. I'm afraid that if I play Crowder, I'm going to get one of those games he had last time, the 5 for 7 for 38. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
or whatever. So I do agree with you, by the way, that you don't have to play a run back in a game like this. Maybe, you know, like what you could do, and this is, look, Buffalo is coming off the game where not only they're a huge favorite against Jacksonville, but Jacksonville didn't even have freaking James Robinson. You know what I mean? Like this is that was ridiculous, and they couldn't really do anything. So, you know, you'd have to think they want to bounce back, and you can make a case for just playing like Allen, Diggs, Beasley, Buffalo defense, and you know what I mean, and just go for the blowout. You know what I mean? That's certainly a way to do it. Interestingly, Josh Allen, like 3 interceptions, he fumbled it a couple of times. It was really brutal. So you'd have to think that he's going to bounce back off of that game. And so I do like Buffalo. I like Carter's my favorite run back, I guess. And I think Carter's is an okay play anyway.
Mm-hmm. It's a terrible matchup, but you know, maybe he gets the target share to break his way. Like, I mean, that's you know, maybe he's the Jamison Crowder this week and he ends up getting a bunch of targets. The only thing is, like, he has had some weeks like that, so he could get you there from a PPR standpoint, also from the reception. So I definitely may have brushed over Carter, partly because I was looking at what was his price tag on FanDuel. It was like it was just 61. 56 is cheaper than 61 on. I thought it was a DK price. It's actually a really reasonable price on FanDuel, but again, I like him for the PPR factor. I don't really like the rest of it all that much. And they do have Ty Johnson back there, and who's going to steal some of the usage in the passing game too. I think you're, like you said, you can just play it one way, and I think that's probably what I'm going to do. Okay. You want to start us off with the next game while I load our video?
Yeah, I don't really have too much interest in this game. I always feel as though I should at least consider playing the Bucks, but I'm just not getting there for some reason. Am I missing something? Should I be playing the Bucks in this spot?
Why don't you keep talking a little bit about this Washington side or something? I need to get this video loaded, and it slows my whole screen down while I'm trying to load it. So I mean, look, I like just my personal take on it is the Bucks are going to score a bunch of points probably. They did struggle with this Washington defense, and it was a different defense last year than it has been this year. I don't mind. Like, I don't know if I want to stack the whole game or if I need to play Brady, but I don't mind it. And
dude, I'm the worst. All right. So listen, guys, I hate to apologize for this. And like I told you, I put projections up early, and they're you know, it's an early look, and I'm going to update them again by Friday, Saturday. I don't even have this game in there, so I'm going to have to redo it with Tampa. I'm going to let you talk about Tampa, Washington.
Okay, I'll finish talking about the video. Okay. I think that because there's no AB and no Gronk, that there is definitely, I don't think we need to play one of the tight ends, but it wouldn't surprise me if one of them had a 2-touchdown game. But you're going to get a condensed target share between Evans and Godwin. So it's really hard not to have some interest in both of those guys. And on the other side, what makes it seem like a game stack is that the one thing we've seen this year is we've seen big performances against this Tampa Bay secondary. And I think that, you know, we don't know if Curtis Samuel's playing, but whatever it is, like, Terry McLaurin is completely viable. I mean, it's a lot of money you're spending on receivers then, but I think this is a reasonable matchup. They like to play one-on-one and try and get pressure on the quarterback and stop the running game. That's sort of like what Tampa Bay does. So I sort of like this game a little bit. And, you know, if we're going to talk about Michael Carter at 56, we should probably mention Antonio Gibson at 55. I know he's had a really down year, but I still like Antonio Gibson enough to where I would consider him. I think he's been playing hurt, but I can get behind a little bit of a mini game stack here. I mean, this was a playoff matchup that Washington almost pulled off the upset before. We wouldn't have all this Tampa Bay stuff.
Tampa Bay, that's what they call it.
That's what they call it, Tampa Bay now. But I can get behind this as a game stack. Brady's a little bit more than I want to spend for a quarterback who doesn't have the rushing upside. Josh Allen's only 300 more. but play Josh Allen, and then if literally you could probably play a skinny Josh Allen by himself, and or maybe play him with Beasley, and then you could play the play the receivers here without even necessarily using Brady. It does feel like there's big upside, and we haven't seen the game from Tyler Johnson, and we also might have Scotty Miller back this week. He was good last week, 5 receptions for 65 yards, pretty solid against the Saints for a 3,300 guy. So they're all in play. I'm just going to say that the TB receivers with what's it called as a run back, probably less likely to pick Gibson, because I don't like to take running backs against Tampa Bay. But I do like the McLaurin upside play at what should be pretty low ownership. So I'm going to be heavy on the receivers in this game. You want to start us off with Atlanta Dallas while I finish doing this video?
Yeah, the Atlanta Dallas is one of my favorite games on the board. And it's another kind of bounce back game. Dallas really just kind of threw a dud up last week against Denver. Although Denver's Denver's sneaky. Denver's definitely sneaky, but I do expect that the Dallas comes back firing this week. I like all the offense there. I like Zeke. I like Dak. I like Cooper. Whoever plays, you know what I mean? Like I really like that a lot. And then on the Atlanta side, I mean, my favorite play, the guy that really stands out is actually Kyle Pitts at tight end for that. So that would be my first part of the run back, is to make sure to get Kyle Pitts, and then then we'll have to see if we want to play Cordell Patterson again, and that type of thing. But for me, that's I think Dallas is a really strong offense. They're probably, if not Buffalo, Dallas probably my favorite offense on the slate.
I haven't looked, and I don't bet on this in football, but if there's a comeback player of the year in the NFL, shouldn't Cordell Patterson be at the top of that list?
Well, I'll tell you it shouldn't, and I'm going to tell you why.
Who am I missing?
No, I'm not that you're missing anything. It's like you've been saying it for whatever, that he was never anywhere. Just the coaches just like refused to use him. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like he was bad.
They tried in Minnesota. They tried in New England. You'd think New England, of all teams that can use guys creatively, that it would have been New England who figured it out.
Right.
And it's not just due to injuries or circumstance. He was doing this, obviously most of his big games were with Ridley still in there too.
Yeah.
But this is a really interesting game. I think we have this. I think this week you end up you need to score a lot more fantasy points than you did last week by a long shot.
I would hope so.
What's weird is people still somehow put up crazy fantasy scores because they had the guys who put up who it was, Sheets? It was the 2% owned guy. Everybody liked Edmonds.
Who won?
And Edmonds may have gotten there. No, it was James Conner, because Edmonds got hurt on the second play. And James Conner put up 43 fantasy points.
Is that what happened? I didn't even watch any of the games.
And it ruined my chance at the second half of the games, because I had a lot of the good pieces in the late games, and I played one lineup in the afternoon slate, and I was hovering around like 40th and with some chances. And then when James Conner got his third touchdown, it just went. I still
James Conner got 3 touchdowns.
And one receiving, he had like 1 million. He had 43. He was the highest.
That was another game that was ridiculous with freaking Murray and the Hopkins out. This is Arizona just put a whipping on it, whatever.
I think that Arizona has been. I've been saying it. We've been saying it a little bit. That they're just better than people have given them credit for. Everybody sort of wants to throw. If any other team had their record, and by the way, they could very easily be undefeated. It was any other team, they would be getting a ton more credit. People don't want to love Kingsbury, but look, they're doing a great job.
He's awesome, Kingsbury.
I know. I'm a huge fan of him offensively. I didn't know how he would measure out as an NFL coach, but he certainly doesn't seem to have a problem. It's also nice for a guy whose career, his last quarterbacks have been Baker Mayfield in college, which was a good thing then. Pat Mahomes, and then you get Kyler Murray in the NFL. It's pretty good stuff to be pretty lucky. But hey, he just proved they can do it without Kyler. I love this game. This Atlanta-Dallas game, I'm totally with every side of it. I'm really pissed off because went off last week. Well, he only had 3 catches, but he had 2 touchdowns and 58 yards. He had 21 fantasy points. Was Zacchaeus at 3,400. Okay. He was on the winning lineups. And I played, what his ownership was like 0.5%. I played him the week before, of course.
Oh my God.
And he was 3,400 too, on top of everything else. So I'm trying to figure out which. I think you're right about the Kyle Pitts being the best play here on the Atlanta side. I think that, Matt Ryan's price is cheap enough to where I'm willing to take a shot against a Dallas defense that just got lit up by Bridgewater. But I wish he was a tiny bit cheaper, is all I would say. Just like I wish he was still back in that 5,500 range, because there are some guys down at the bottom that are kind of interesting. I do like this sort of as a bounce back spot for Dallas. We know Atlanta. Look, Atlanta deserves all the credit that in the world. This team is legitimately, they sort of fit the same mold for their season of what's happening with the Broncos. They bounced back and they've got a real chance to make a run. So I don't know where I want to see how healthy Zeke is this week in practices, but Zeke naturally would be the guy you'd want to play. But if for any reason Zeke doesn't play, you are going to lock in.
Well, then you
locking in Tony Pollard.
Yeah, I mean,
it's especially against Atlanta, pass catching back. I mean, we're gonna ride that one out. Gallup is supposed to be back this week, so it takes away some of the upside from these receivers.
You know what? I almost forgot about him. That's so funny.
Well, he's been gone all year, so it's not your fault for forgetting. I mean, And they turned Malik Turner, who puts up. He has 20 fantasy points, 5 catches for 33 yards and 2 touchdowns, and they all happen in the last 5 minutes of a 5-score game. And Malik Turner is not even a guy that they use, so don't look at that Malik Turner as anything. Whether or not Gallup plays, if Gallup doesn't play, I'm willing to go as far down and take a shot with Cedric Wilson. It's not my favorite play, but again, you want a cheap receiver who can break a slate. Like that's a guy who can, or not break a slate, put up 20 fantasy points. But I think that my natural thing is to play CD and Cooper off of the dud games. I think the projections have them low. I really like this whole game environment. But I prefer the Dak side to Cooper and Lamb or something like that. And run it back with Pitts and or Patterson. It's going to be harder for me to get to Cordarrelle Patterson. My biggest issue is I think I don't care what happened last week. I think overall Dallas has a good defense, but Patterson just freaking gets there every time, man. Even against a tough Saints defense, he had nine carries for 10 yards, but he had 6 catches for 128 yards. He's going to get you one way or the other. And he's actually been one of the most consistent running backs, not at the ultimate high tier that we need to win a tournament every week, but certainly a guy who could be in game stack. So this is one of my favorite games is the Atlanta Dallas.
All right. I just wanted to let you know something.
What's up?
Again, even though it's an early slate, I really feel like I slighted people by not getting that Tampa Washington up there. So while we were doing this, I just did run it with Tampa Washington. Sure. And just to let you guys know that I do have Tampa as rated as the top overall stack on the and not only that, but it's by a lot. I'm just telling you what it is. I actually do have Brady, Godwin, and Evans as the top overall double stack pairing by just a lot actually. So I'm gonna, as soon as we get off this, I'm gonna update all the projections on the site so that people are seeing that. So I do feel bad about that. But
yeah, it's interesting. My only issue with Brady in that game, and again, I think you could literally argue for playing 2 of the receivers from Tampa and not playing Brady. Usually you don't want to do that because of correlation. But when you're talking about a quarterback that has no rushing touchdown upside versus you could use another skinny stack with a rushing, that's how the guys won week 1. Remember? I can't remember who it was that went off, but they double stack. It wasn't Dallas, but it was somebody anyway. But they used Burrow, who was cheap then, with just Higgins, and those guys did nothing. And they were in every winning lineup because they were able to get up. Oh, it was up to Kelsey and what's his name that week. It was the only way you could play Kelsey with Tyreek Hill. And they combined for 70 fantasy points. So, all right, let's move on to New Orleans and Tennessee. Boy, I'll tell you what, right now, I have a lot of respect for New Orleans, not a team I generally bet against, a team that I just think comes up with really creative ways to win most every game, even almost came back in that game last week. I don't understand why Tennessee is only a 3-point favorite here. You're basically calling the teams even. Is that really fair to I mean, I understand Derrick Henry got hurt. This team just housed the Rams in LA. They beat the hell out of us. They beat the hell out of the Chiefs the week right before. They've been legitimately the best, most impressive team in football because they're beating really good opponents consistently. So that's one that stands out to me although again, I don't think that they're so much better but they've proven that they are. You know what I mean? It's what are you going to trust? What you think or what you've proven? If Alabama, for example, lost 4 games in the college football this season or 3 games, you might still feel they're the best team, but they haven't proven that they are. And this team has proven to be the best team when you looked at their competition, especially after they got off to the slow start. And by the way, they were my pick to lose to the Chiefs in the AFC title game before the season. I'll go back and retweet it because I still love my picks. It was Brady. It was the Rams beating Tampa Bay, and it was Tennessee losing to the Chiefs, which still feels like a long shot the way the Chiefs look. But anyway, as far as the game goes, I don't really want to do anything here, to be honest with you. I think that you could make an argument for Kamara, but I just don't feel like that's optimal against what's become a really good defense. And you can't really play receivers from New Orleans because of the way that they're running things. Like, I do think that there will be that weird Marquise Callaway 30-point game at some point, and this is a shady secondary. But I just don't want to do anything with this game, to be honest with you. Do you have anything in this game? Jeremy McNichols, maybe? I mean, I don't know. We're not playing Adrian Peterson. That feels...
No, I really don't. And as a matter of fact, I just want to even see if I even like Kamara at all. Nah, I mean, not really. I really don't have much of anything from this game. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. And
plus, you're going to get the Taysom Hill vulture attempts.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
yeah, definitely.
Whether Simeon plays or not, and they'll use Taysom Hill in a lot of different ways.
Let me just see if you know who I do like. Actually, I do like AJ Brown. I think.
Okay.
I mean,
like AJ Brown though. I mean, the
okay.
matchup is pretty tough. What about Julio Jones? That's the only guy I was thinking of. Was that?
He's just okay. Yeah, he's just okay. I don't really like. You know what? I'm a sports guy. I don't like anything in this game.
I think Julio at 5,400 has a chance to have a game, especially when you think that AJ Brown's going to match up with I can't remember the great tight end, the great when we do all the sports, I get the names mixed up sometimes, but we all know who I'm talking about. Awesome coverage corner for New Orleans. I just can't think of his name right now. Lattimore, thank you. But I think that makes Julio Jones at 5,400 really open things up. That's where I'm at. 5,400 Julio Jones is definitely, that's a little bit getting, I know he hasn't had those big games, partly because they had Derrick Henry just pounding, and they've had AJ Brown, but I do think Julio at 5,400 has got to raise some eyebrows. All right, this is do you want to start off with this one? Because I have a tempting thing I want to do in this game, this Jacksonville game.
Yeah, when I first looked, I thought I was going to be interested in the Indianapolis side as far as stacking and stuff like that goes, but I didn't. I mean, they're just really like a secondary idea for me. I do think Jonathan Taylor is one of the guys you have to consider. I mean, he's a workhorse, man. He just is. And
he's awesome too. He's really good.
He's awesome, and you know I imagine the Jacksonville is going to have a letdown off the enormous win against Buffalo. Now they're going on the road to Indianapolis. They're going to get waxed in this game, and I think that Taylor is going to have a really, really big game. So, do I like Taylor more than a cheaper Austin Eckler? Maybe, probably not, but I think Taylor's a very, very strong. I mean, I think he's got to be considered a strong player. So I like him, and I think that was most of what I liked in this game.
I can get behind, if James Robinson plays, I can get behind James Robinson.
Okay.
If he doesn't play, I think Carlos Hyde is a really interesting spend down. And I was very anti-Hyde last week when people wanted to play him. We had a million things in chat. Oh, but he's so cheap. Oh, but he's going to get all the touches. I'm like, it's the Buffalo Bills run defense. I'm just not going to be stacking a guy who's basically, I know he had targets in some of the games, but for the most part is going to be a guy who just carries the ball for you. He did have 21 carries. So I don't, in these defense, I don't have as much respect for. But I think that what happens was Jacksonville most of the season was playing really fast, and partly it's from a lot of incomplete passes, gives you more snaps. So it does make me more interested in the Taylor. I love the Taylor play, and I love the Pittman play. Now I don't think you want to do that together, but if T.Y. Hilton is back, you know that's going to hurt Pittman a little bit. But is it really? Is what the question is, because Pittman is becoming one of the better receivers, one of the better young receivers in the NFL, and I think he's legitimate. So I'm not sure how much it'll hurt him. I do think I would consider a tiny bit of TY, because when he's played, I mean, like even when he's played limited snaps and stuff, he got work those weeks, then he got hurt again. And I don't know, they looked for him deep a couple times. He got a couple big, like 40-yard PIs, pass interferences. I want to try to attack Jacksonville and treat them as if they're Jacksonville. But most of my interest in this game seems to be the running backs. And, we always talk about how running backs on either side, don't correlate well. And in general, that's sort of the common thinking. Well, last week, what I did because of that is I kept changing my Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb combinations to different ones. And that really hurt me because I could have won on that week alone just if I played Nick Chubb and Mixon together, because Mixon was 1% owned and also put up almost 30 fantasy points. Of course, James Conner, the god James Conner was the killer. But I have mild interest in this as a game stack, and I also think it's a little disrespectful to Jacksonville to have him as a 10-point underdog here. So I think that Trevor Lawrence can move the ball. I just don't really love the receivers that I'm choosing from. My favorite would be Chenault. Coming off of a nothing game. Marvin Jones, a little higher price than I'd want to pay if I wanted to play the really thin. So what it does allow you to do if you play a guy like Lawrence, let's say he only throws for 1 touchdown or 2 touchdowns and he runs for 1, or throws for 1, runs for 1, but he has, 300 yards passing, which is totally on the table here, especially if they get down early. And you run it back with a Taylor. You could, even with Taylor's price being so high, or Pittman, you can do pretty much what else you want with the rest of your lineup when your stack is just a skinny stack of Trevor Lawrence, who I would call he's not Josh Allen, a very, very poor man's Josh Allen at this point. Maybe someday he'll be as good. But there is upside for this guy, both running and passing, and he's so cheap that I have some interest in Trevor Lawrence on that skinny stack. I just don't know who to play him with, to be honest with you. Maybe the answer is just play him with Dan Arnold and hope that the touchdown goes to Dan Arnold, and Dan Arnold gets 15 fantasy points, and you get 25 out of what's it called, and then you're in great shape to stack the rest with spend ups, and you use Taylor on the other side, maybe, and he can get 35 for you. So that, I like that game a little bit, but it's not my favorite. It's just something I want. I'm flirting with the idea of doing something with.
Detroit, Pittsburgh, man, those Steelers, man, they give everybody a sweat every freaking game they play. Just when it looks like they're putting a good game together, they collapse. It's amazing. And I don't think this game is going to be any different. I'm telling you, I think that Detroit's going to be a huge favorite, and they expect to win, and they're at home.
Pittsburgh will be a huge favorite.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, I meant. Yeah, Pittsburgh's going to be a huge favorite. They'll be at home. They'll be expecting to win, and they'll get out to a good start. And I think, listen, one thing about Detroit, I'm telling you, they just play hard every week. The only game they didn't play well was in the letdown game. After the Rams game, they played Philly, and they didn't show up. But aside from that,
and the Bengals, yeah. The Bengals, right. They lost 41-0 at home or whatever.
That's right. But Detroit usually shows up to play.
Yep.
And I think as a result, I think this game could be, I don't know if it's consider it sneaky, but I think this game can produce, man. I do. Whether it be because Pittsburgh gets a lead and Detroit then, is coming back, or whether Pittsburgh's defense is just not that great. And look, they gave up all this fourth quarter stuff to Justin Fields the other day. Detroit has weapons. I mean, they can do stuff. So first of all, I do think that Najee Harris is, he's going to be really chalky, but he's the best spend up running back on the slate. So I like that. And then you could play Roethlisberger with like the greatest receiver in history, the Fremont or whatever his name is. Play him with Deontay Johnson. I like that. And then on Detroit side, you got to see who's in, but Hawkinson once again right in there. I don't know if Swift. I mean, all these dudes. I think this game could be sneaky. Maybe it's not even sneaky, but I think it could produce.
Yeah, it's hard for me to find the love on the Detroit side. One thing about Pittsburgh's defense is they are really good. They had a little bit of a letdown second half against Chicago the other night, but overall, I trust this defense. I would be wanting to play this defense, but they're too expensive. TJ Hawkinson is not a guy who I think I'll be going to this week, but I definitely don't mind it. And the same with DeAndre Swift. I definitely don't mind it. I don't want to play Roethlisberger with anybody, but I do want to play Najee Harris, and especially if Chase Claypool. I mean, if Chase Claypool is out, I don't know how we don't play Deontay Johnson everywhere. That's that, and Najee Harris for that matter. So Najee Harris, I agree with you. It looks like the best spend up to me initially, along with Taylor. But then you get, Deontay Johnson, man. I mean, I would love to play Deontay Johnson if there's no Claypool. So I like both those guys. I have them as priority plays, and then bearing the lead here. But I think this price is criminally under on Freiermuth. Before Sheets, I mentioned it on our show yesterday, I had built I built my two lineups until I canceled all my action on Monday because of the DraftKings issue.
Uh-huh.
And Fryermuth was my captain in one of those 222s. And I can't remember what the rest of the build was, but I remember that was what I wanted to do that day. And I just didn't end up playing. So it was kind of disappointing because he had a monster game, obviously. He's good. He's a rookie. He's got a lot of talent. He's getting targets. He's a really good catch radius. They're going to look for him near the goal line, especially if Claypool is banged up at all. Fryermuth, Harris, and Deontay Johnson will all become priority plays of mine. So it's weird to like that much of one side, but not want the game at all. I really don't want the game stack. I just want those guys. Not all together, just they're all going to be spread out throughout my lineups.
So how do you feel about and obviously the ownership is whatever, but how do you feel about a 30% Dearness Johnson?
Why is Dearness, were we just assuming Chubb's out?
Didn't have update on either. I don't know. They're on the COVID list right now. I don't know.
Yeah. Right now I have
them both out. I mean, not confirmed out, but all my projections are presuming them out. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
So without them, then you get the chalky Dearness Johnson.
That's what I just said. Yeah.
Yeah, like you said. Yeah. I mean, look, I guess.
Yep.
I mean, he had his chance against Denver, who's also a really good run defense. He put up 24 fantasy points, 24.8 in that game.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be hard to argue against him. I'll tell you that. So, yeah, he definitely. Yeah.
Jarvis Landry remains questionable.
Yeah, I think that it's viable. I really don't like the matchup, but if he's 4,700, I think we can throw away some of the matchup stuff. Jarvis Landry, I expect to play here, and I think is an interesting, could just do it on volume. Didn't really have the game we expected, but that's because it was a really weird game script. They just got off that weird early lead against, and then they had the big bomb to somebody else. They were just playing from 2 scores ahead. And then also really, really bad pass by Baker in the end zone cost him a big play. So I'm not very interested in this game as a whole, but I do think Dearness Johnson, if there is no Chubb, is very much in play just because of his price. Jacoby Myers has gotten just really, really cheap. I know it's no fun to go against Denzel Ward, and maybe there's a good reason for it, but just throwing it out there, I don't think I'm going to do it. Damian Harris is going to show up as a good play, assuming that he's in. If he's not in, we have a really weird situation to try and figure out in New England. This is not a game I like for fantasy. As I say, with every game the Browns play, I always want to play both defenses. So that's something you could do. I do think New England has figured something out, and I think that it wouldn't be a reach to think New England is the team we're talking about in the AFC title game or the Super Bowl again, with the way that they've looked. Even against weaker opponents, they just look like they figured things out. Mac Jones has been doing a really good job. It's a good game between two teams, a really important game. I just don't have a lot of interest in it from a DFS perspective. Okay. Maybe you know what you could do? You could do Hunter Henry here in this game. That's basically the extent of my interest.
Hunter Henry?
Yeah, I just think that he's a little bit, he's got a ceiling for his price, and we've seen Cleveland have some bad games against tight ends. So I'll take a little Henry shot.
Okay.
All right. Moving forward. This is a fun one. Do you want to start us off with it?
Yeah, this is one of my favorites. And as a matter of fact, given the fact that I got both these teams in there, this has got to be the game stack as far as I'm concerned. Herbert, Allen, Williams, Jefferson, Thielen, pretty much all of it. Eckler on the Charger side. Boy, Dalvin Cook, maybe. I mean, he really hasn't put up a score that we'd like, but
he's got a lawsuit pending right now,
but he's got the break-in thing going. Maybe he doesn't even play. If he doesn't even play, then it's Madison season again. Yeah, this game's got to blow up, right? This seems like the key game.
It does. The only thing that worries me a little bit is we've seen Minnesota do both. Mostly the games have blown up with them, but every now and then they have these games where they just shut somebody down. But that's really the only argument against it. I think Jefferson and Allen are my favorites. Thielen would be next for the receivers, and then Mike Williams. Mike Williams, I mean, I was saying that like they do want to try and get the ball downfield, but they've really learned that they need to control the underneath game. And Keenan Allen went on this whole rant about how they need to start taking the 4 to 5 yards every team gets them. And of course, what happens? He has 13 targets, 12 receptions last week. So I really like Keenan Allen here. I don't entirely trust the Minnesota secondary. I do think their front line is pretty good and their linebackers are good. Eckler and Cook both are showing up as good plays. I think I prefer Eckler.
Oh, Cook, I forgot about him too. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm going to say Eckler. Let me just do this over here. Eckler, Jefferson, Allen, and then Cook would be my favorites in that order from this game. I'm not going to get into the tight ends. If I did, Jared Cook too. Yeah, Jared Cook, he'd be the next one for me. He's 3,200. That's kind of ridiculous. But it's a great game. And I agree with you. You can stack both sides of it. You can take the Minnesota quarterback. Should be interesting to see what happens here in LA with this one, because we have a lot of Minnesota. We do have Minnesota people out here. And it's going to be interesting to see how the fans break down. I'm always curious to see that with the Chargers games. And then you've got, the really long shot play of this game, which seems like the right team to do it against would be KJ Osborne. But I don't think I'm going to actually end up getting to it or needing it personally this week. But I love the whole game.
Yep.
All right. Carolina, Arizona. What are your thoughts on?
I think we go right back to James Conner. That's my thoughts.
Okay.
Again, we got to watch for Hopkins and all that other stuff, but I can't imagine why. Well, I can certainly imagine why. I mean, if Murray is back, you don't need James Conner as much. But if Edmonds remains doubtful, I mean, I don't know. Conner at 6,300 seems totally reasonable to me. And I've heard some early takes that maybe we should be playing like DJ Moore in these Carolinas. I don't know, man. PJ Walker throwing. I don't know if I just don't know if I can do it. I mean, they have good edge rushers. I don't know. I think this gonna be a tough game, I think, for Carolina. And I don't want to play McCaffrey yet. I don't know. For me, early look again, just Connor maybe, and that's pretty much it.
I like Connor and McCaffrey. I think I don't know what they're gonna do actually with McCaffrey. I need to know how many snaps we can expect from him, because I definitely have some interest in McCaffrey at this price tag that we'll never see him at again.
Till next week.
Until next week. I'll tell you what, look, yeah, I agree with you, PJ Walker throwing them the ball, but both Moore, and I know Anderson's been horrible, so I'll say that I may throw him into a lineup, but I'm not suggesting you do the same. But I do think DJ Moore's price is too low, but it's who's throwing him the ball. It's a worry. And on top of everything else, Arizona's defense, also one of the better defenses of the week this week. We have to see what happens with the Arizona side of it for me to really decide here. I need to know whether Kyler and Hopkins are playing. I don't know that I really want to do a ton outside the running backs in this game, though, anyway, personally. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I don't really have a ton of interest in this game outside of the running backs.
What do you think of Green Bay, Philly?
No, you mean Denver, Philly, Denver.
We're Denver, Philly. Sorry about that. I consider that equally a yawner. I didn't really get to either of those teams and anybody I particularly want to target. And I don't have any really big plays that stand out for me in that game. Am I missing something here?
I think Jerry Jeudy's very viable.
Okay. Especially
if Fant is out. If Fant is out, I don't mind going back to Alberto again.
Right. Definitely. Yeah, I forgot him.
And my take on this game is give me the over.
Interesting.
If it's not a Denver blowout, I think this game hits the over. I think Philly scores points, they run the ball a lot, but they play fast enough. So can't really do anything exactly what they're running. I just can't figure. I mean, it's a different guy every time. It's like almost like they are actually strategically trying to make sure different guys score touchdowns from the running back position. Yeah, it's an interesting. I don't think I'm going to play. No quarterback for me. I think there's an argument to be made for Bridgewater. I mentioned earlier how much they're throwing the ball, and I think Jeudy and Sutton are both underpriced for their upside. But the problem is Tim Patrick is decent as well. So I would need Fant to be out for that to happen. So it's just kind of like a meh game for me. Not really a ton of interest. But I do like the over still, even though I don't have a ton of interest. I like the over.
Okay.
You ready for the final? Another one we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. What's the latest here on him? He's like, he's clear on protocol, ready to sun. There's a health hurdle, whatever it is. Okay. Assuming that we get Rodgers back, I think this is a really, really good game to stack. I think that between that one and the Minnesota LAC, I think the 4:00 game is going to dominate. Well, I shouldn't say that. Dallas is in the first games. But if I get Rodgers back, I want to do this. I want to do Rodgers. I want to do Metcalf. I want to go Rodgers over 2.5 touchdowns if there is such a thing. You know what I mean? Like I think that Rodgers is just wants to come back into the field and just stick it to everybody. And on the other side, I want, like I said, I want to play Metcalf as a run back, and I don't know, I kind of like it.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you, but it's not so much motivationally about Rodgers. It's really, that's part of it, but it's really just that Seattle secondary I still don't trust one little bit, and you have everybody who in Pro Football Focus is rated like near the bottom of their position at corner. And what is Rodgers going to do to a team like that? You know what I mean? This is what he thrives on. It's hard to know, like outside of Devontae Adams, I don't really think you need to play him with anybody else. The other thing is that we saw some weird stuff with what they've been doing with Aaron Jones and Dylan. I thought they were going to use Dylan Jones more as a wide receiver last week, but it was, I mean, again, it was kind of a weird game. If Chris Carson's back, that's another guy we would definitely want to run back, right? Like he's 5,700. When you get to that price range, like that's a really, really good play if he's back. So I have Seattle and Green Bay as a questionable. This game could be a dud of all duds. If there's no Rodgers, Wilson will play. So there'll be something happening, but they can just pound the ball or something. But I like the Adams, Metcalf, Rodgers idea, just like you do. And Metcalf, no matter what, is with Russell Wilson back, I think is definitely one of my top guys, maybe my top guy at the receiver position, which is nothing new for me. Every time Metcalf goes out there, I feel like he's gonna. I expect him to score 30, so he always disappoints me, but he disappoints me with like 28s. We can get that. He had a game last year with like almost 60, I think. I mean, literally, you get one big play from him, and then you're just. I just love Metcalf this week, and I don't think I'll be alone in that. Devontae Adams, Metcalf, yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I think there's an argument to be made for Aaron Jones because people are not on this, are not into Jones anymore because of the way they see the splits going. But they had a game with no receivers available, so they had to use Jones as a wide receiver, in which case he had a ton of targets. Then they had a guy who really isn't a quarterback. I mean, they're supposed to be their future quarterback, but they really couldn't move. They couldn't do anything against that Chiefs team, and it was a confusing game. So they were trying to use maybe a little bit of youth and burst with AJ Dillon. They used him more in the passing game. In that game, I don't know, man. I still think Aaron Jones has got a ceiling here. Yep. And I think on the other side, you have if Chris Carson's back, then we've got 4 guys we can intermix from this game that I think are really, really solid plays.
And I would be remiss if I didn't point out Tyler Lockett as well. I think this game. I like these 4. Well, the 4:00 slate itself is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I do like that initial Dallas game. So I'll just quickly sum up through my thoughts of this slate. I really like that I still like the Allen to Diggs combination. I think this is a good week for it. I like the Tampa Bay receivers with McLaurin as a run back. I like Atlanta, Dallas a lot. I like Minnesota, LAC, and then I like Seattle, Green Bay. My favorite individual plays: Najee Harris, Austin Eckler, Metcalf, Jonathan Taylor, Freiermuth, Deontay Johnson. You mentioned also James Conner. I like that one. Devontae Adams, if Rodgers plays. Jerry Jeudy is maybe gets a little bit overlooked this week. And Michael Pittman and Julio Jones are my rounding it out plays.
Yeah, watch the news in Cleveland, because if it's gonna be the De'Aaron Johnson show, I mean, De'Aaron Johnson show, he's gonna be 40% owned at that price.
De'Aaron Johnson.
Yeah, and probably worth it. So I mean, we've seen it with these running backs before.
The way they run their things in Cleveland.
Yeah. But okay, so that's at least a good start. Sorry for the hiccup with the Bucks, but they're now in the projections at they're rated top. So what I like, I got the 1 o'clockers. We've got Buffalo, Tampa, Dallas. Then the 4 o'clockers, we got the Chargers, all the Rudy Herbert that he likes to play every week. And we get Aaron Rodgers' revenge on the entire universe, and not to mention it's a good matchup also.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, good luck to everyone out there tonight. We hope you all crush it this weekend. And let's have a good week 10. Let's finish the NFL season. Let's have a good second back half. This is the time for us, to start taking advantage of what we've learned so far in the season. And we'll be with you at 11:30 Eastern, and me and Rody will be with you tomorrow. So,
and starting with getting with the Thursday showdown tomorrow, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Good luck to everybody.
All right. I'll see you later, Bobby.